Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writings of your favorite novels. This summer, we are hosting our Romantasy Edition of Book Club while we prepare for a 15-part literary analysis of Sarah J. Maas's House of Sky and Breath. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy, and each week we'll discuss one book from our summer book club roster. By using our literary background, we'll provide our first blush analysis of each book, as well as discuss listener thoughts.
This week, we'll be discussing Bride by Ali Hazelwood.
We have been waiting a while to do this one.
It's been so long of us teasing one another of like, I can't wait to talk about this.
Because we keep not talking about it.
And now here we are, finally ready to talk. What will we do?
I honestly don't know. It's been so long since I've read the book now.
I know, I am worried about that. But luckily, we don't have to worry too much because we polled our listeners and we said, hey, everyone, send us what you like and what you didn't like. And they did, because they're awesome. Yeah.
And they have opinions.
Oh, absolutely. Love opinions.
Their opinions. All opinions are valid.
Only our listeners' opinions are valid.
Okay. All of our listener opinions are valid.
Anyone who's not our listener, their opinion's not valid. Yeah. Amy's face looks so happy.
Yep. Okay. It's hurting my soul, but let's go.
No, how about we start with our first blush, as you say in the intro.
In the intro. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I liked it.
So I will say I haven't read a lot of Ali Hazelwood. I've read a couple and I've enjoyed all of them.
Yeah.
And I do think for me, this book of the few that I've read had the best humor out of all of them. And her narrative style is very funny, is very witty. But I thought she was like at the top of her game with her humor in this one.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed every element of it. And it didn't bother me that it was, virgin core smut.
Virgin core smut. I mean, you're not wrong, but...
It was, that to me was secondary to everything else because I really liked the characters. I liked the storyline. I liked the way she utilized the vampire and werewolf tropes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't feel like I could complain. But it was a very lighthearted thing, right?
We both expressed how much fun it was reading, and I think that like a book like this, that's the best way to describe it is how fun it is. I like, similar to you, because we share Audible accounts. I've also read some of Ali Hazelwood, not every single thing in her collection, but I do think that as a writer, you can tell she's really grown as a writer in this book, and she's hit her stride. And this is her first paranormal book. Everything else has been normal book, and this is para. So it's always a risky jump, you know. And I'm actually really impressed that her editor let her do it, because sometimes you're kind of stuck in your lane. And you know how I feel about werewolves, Amy.
Yeah,
big fan. Yeah. Big fan of werewolves.
And here's the thing. Werewolves are borderline, and vampires, overly done. And oftentimes not done well.
I'm going to argue that it's harder to do werewolves than it is vampires.
I agree with that.
One of my all-time favorite books is Blood and Chocolate. I reread that last year, and then I went through this like werewolf kick. And nothing satisfied my werewolf scratch the way that this book did.
Yeah, I think it did a really, really great job. And it's a gateway to some paranormal topics that I know we'll discuss. It's a gateway
I know not of what you say.
Why? Why? But it was good. Good job.
Thank you. Okay, so before we get into other things, let's talk about world building. So I have the notes here. I'm going to read a couple of these right off the bat. Loved how casual of a fantasy it was. It was an easy read. I'm always a sucker for a vampire werewolf. Interesting fantasy system.
Mm-hmm.
I think the system was pretty interesting, especially when you get into the science of it all. Because then I'm almost
Mm-hmm.
like, is this almost borderline science fiction?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just like we were bitten and the moon goddess now makes us shift into the night. It's like we have different DNA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's we can't procreate because our DNA is sufficiently different.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, I feel like it wasn't as strong on the science as Ali Hazelwood's other work.
Mm-hmm.
You could still tell there were elements of that background in the story. And I do feel like, well, maybe the concept of three different species living together in the world and trying to understand how to make it all work, that might not be new. I felt like she had a unique spin on the
Yes.
coexisting species.
Yes. I mean,
And
maybe like someone else out there is being like, no, she totally ripped it off of X, Y, and
right,
Z.
right.
But as far as I've known, I haven't seen something like this. And especially with like the different color blood, I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed that aspect. Like everyone had different color blood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you like talk about like Ali Hazelwood using just like the smallest bit of her background and me being like, wow,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That's
Well,
called science.
but what I loved even more about it is that when they blush, their faces turn different
Yeah.
colors, right? So
Yeah.
wow, it's been long enough that I don't even
Green.
remember
Who was green?
the werewolves. I
Werewolves.
was gonna say what's the love interest's name?
Low. Like
Low, thank
Lowe's
you.
hardware.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you, thank you.
That was my biggest issue.
His face turns kind of like olive green because he's
Yeah.
blushing. I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
so cute.
It was
But
really sweet.
weird to think about, but a great use of what you know about human anatomy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's one of those facts that any author could have just like thrown in, but then
Mm-hmm.
to add the details of like blushing and other like those types of things, I just feel like that's genius. That's called science. And I would be such a sucker. I'd be like, you know what? Love avocados. Green's my favorite color. It's not, but it almost looks like it would be
Yeah, yeah.
with all of this. Yeah, it was really I very much enjoyed the one of the comments one of the listeners says was I read that she spelled vampire with a Y and I was out.
Oh no.
Fair, but also you should try it again.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like if Jennifer Armentrout can get away with calling her whatever's Wolven, you can deal with a Y in the vampire.
I actually like read the Y in the vampire. I was like, oh, so these are edgy vampires. These aren't your normal
vampire.
vampires. Vampire?
Vampire.
They're not vampires. The vampire. Can't help that they're too fancy for you.
See, I listened to the audiobook, so I didn't even know that there was a Y involved.
I was so busy trying to not let the experience go too fast that I kept topping back between reading and listening.
Oh,
I was like, don't go. I love this so much. So another thing about the world building, and maybe this is going into a little bit of the plot development in the writing style, but I, for one, enjoyed the way we got the information at the pacing we received the information of the world.
Yeah, I agree. I felt the same way when I was listening to the audiobook. And I think, again, it goes back to the unique voice that Ali Hazelwood gives her female characters, especially. Yeah. And the dry, jaded, slightly always annoyed, but also kind of optimistic perspective just of the main character just kind of allowed that information to trickle in a fun way. Yeah. And I was never annoyed at when we got information versus didn't get information.
Yeah, and I think we got a couple of different contradicting comments on it. Some people also liked the way that we got the info. Other people felt like it was a little too confusing and they didn't get everything right away, and And you know, one of the hard things when you pace out the writing, when you pace out the world development, right, and the answers, it gives time for the reader to fill in the holes incorrectly, so that when they get something, they've already inferred the wrong bit of information,
Yeah.
and they have what they think. So it is, I like I like this way of getting info, but I also do see the risks that you're inevitably going to have with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that because I think something authors struggle with just as much as the readers do
Mm-hmm.
is what is the right amount and the
Yeah.
right pace.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's up to personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
I think also something that I know I myself as a writer struggle with is I like logic games.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to give you information where you're being led along in a logic game to see if you can deduce correctly the information I'm not giving
You
you.
would. You
I
would.
would.
You would.
And sometimes people, and I do this too sometimes when I'm
Mm-hmm.
not when I'm speeding through stuff, you do, like you said, fill in information that isn't actually there. You
Yeah.
just make an inference. And then that destroys the whole logic game and then it gets very confusing.
Yeah.
So I could see how a little bit of that is coming into play here in Bride.
I feel like I can imagine the way you go about it, because I haven't read all of your book. I've only read like the first couple chapters. I like to imagine you as Jigsaw from the Saw movies, where it's you're guiding them along. You're like, I want to play a game. It's called a logic game. Let's see if you're going to figure this out.
I want to play a game. You don't want to play a game.
Yeah.
You don't get a choice.
You're not going to get a choice, and you're going to find out, and I'm somehow going to hurt your feelings along the way.
Probably. Yeah, that sounds about right.
But like in a fun, enjoyable way.
Yeah. It's like an escape room.
My books are like escape rooms. You want to leave, but you can't because you're trapped.
Which I can understand why that might not be palatable to everybody.
I palate it. I would love to palate it.
You're sure?
No. Okay, so this was an interesting tidbit that only one person called out, and I can't remember if this was under their like likes or don't likes. So I'm sorry if I'm not saying it in the right context, but the little bits of Homeboy's perspective before each chapter.
Oh, yeah.
I loved those.
I did too. It's an interesting choice though, and I do want to talk about why.
Because some of them were spoilery.
Yes. They're definitely spoilery, but I think that was important in a lot of ways. We're already getting into the why. I think Misery is so clueless sometimes that having the snippets of Lo's perspective at the start of each chapter was necessary for us to stick around for the ride.
Yeah.
For us to be like, okay, this is going to have some romance in it. We're going to get there. I just don't know how or when. But I think it added extra tension, which I enjoyed.
I think that's a great way of putting it, that it added extra tension, because, you know, I'm reflecting. I'm like, sometimes I got annoyed because I'm like, he's into her. Stop being stupid, Misery. But that's literally what she's doing, that's called tension. So
right. Exactly.
I will say sometimes I did feel like it was spoilery. I can't recall which chapter, but there was a couple times where it almost felt like a little preview of what's to come, right? And then it was just kind of like very much a specific choice of like, this little snippet is going to tell you that things are going to be all right at the end of this chapter, when I didn't need those necessarily.
That's fair. I felt like it also spoiled when he essentially was going to gaslight her and make her think that he didn't really care. Like, you knew it was coming.
I have so much to talk about with that.
We're not there yet.
We're not there. But listener, we're gonna.
Let's ask this question. Was that little snippet of his perspective at the start of each chapter necessary? Or did Hazelwood do it purely for
style?
Yeah.
Great question. Great question. I'm going to argue, and let me form my argument because I don't know. I'm going to say it is necessary because I think that we don't get enough of Lo from Misery's perspective.
Yeah.
And we need to know, even if it's a little tiny glimpse, that there's more to Lo going on in the background.
Yeah.
And, you know, these are things that we could guess, right? He's alpha male wolf. He's secretly in love with her. He's going to kill anyone that's going to hurt her. I eat it up, right? Like, that's fine. But I do think that the fact that it was in third person was interesting to me. It felt disconnected, which then made me feel like Lo is trying to disconnect from his own feelings too.
Okay.
And I felt like that also kind of set up more of who he was too.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. I'm going to argue I think it was necessary for no sake other than to help the reader fall in love with Lo and want Lo and Misery together.
Yeah.
And I say that because, like you said, we don't get enough of Lo from Misery's perspective to really learn about him, understand him. But we learn about him through those moments, like when he cuts a piece of his shirt out that she's touched and he keeps it in his pocket.
Oh my God. That's some like Regency Darcy bullshit that I love.
I know. And we never see Misery find out about it. He never tells her about it, which if he had would have been like gag worthy, right? It's so cringy. But for us to know the action was done and it's just something he tucks away.
It's only romantic if you don't know about it and other people watch and you like it. Otherwise, then it's creepy.
We're voyeurs. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those moments were necessary for me to really root for Lo and root for Misery and Lo to be together.
I think that is absolutely valid. And I totally forgot about the little pocket moment, and that was sweet. So here's another comment that I feel like goes a little bit back and forth. And when I say back and forth, I mean some people say one thing and people say otherwise. The pacing of the book. Some people felt that it went a little too quickly, especially when you get into the ending. I don't know if we want to get into the ending of the book, but let's talk about like the pacing of the overall book.
Interesting. I think I liked how fast it was because we get enough about the outside world to kind of understand it, but Misery's not living in that world. She's stuck in a house.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't feel necessary to be inundated in that. And when you're trapped in a house, we all lived it in the pandemic, time kind of blurs together.
Yeah.
And it either goes really fast or really slow, and you're not quite sure what you're going to get.
Yep.
So I felt like the pacing of the book was appropriate given the setting that Misery finds herself in. I liked it because there wasn't a lot of extra layers. You know, this wasn't an SJM book where there's a lot of different plot lines happening, a lot of different character perspectives happening.
Yep.
So for what it was, which is one point of view, first person, someone stuck in a house, I think it was good.
I agree. I think that there was a moment when I was holding the book and I was like, this is a very small book. And we are getting so much information. There's a lot of work happening. And not just in world building, but I want to say like in making us care about the characters, in establishing who they are as people and establishing everything. I mean, and we even started with a flashback.
Yeah.
And that's impressive because that's like, I'm not saying you're wasting time, but like that's, you know, that's a lot of time that you're putting into something and to not go linear. And I think that when it comes to like pacing, it's an A- because the only part is the minus is the very end when everything goes down. And I don't know if we want to talk about that right away, but I do agree that, you know, let's talk about it. I just think that the ending was the thing that was like went too fast for me.
What about it went too fast?
So there's no way to talk about the ending without talking about the plot. And the main plot being that Misery's friend was kidnapped and we don't
Mhm.
know where she is.
Yep.
And everything from Misery and Lo having sex at the apartment to the
Mhm.
ending was just like, we're hitting all these points. Like
Yeah.
they're kidnapped. Now they're breaking out. Now her dad has
Mhm.
them. Now they're
Mhm.
busting out and now they kill them and now they're done.
Mhm.
And that was, I don't know how I'd fill it up with space. I don't know what I would do to make up for the things that I'm saying. But I do feel like a lot of other parts of this book, she did spend time, especially when you
Mhm.
consider like Lo's little sister. And, we got enough time with her that like, I love that kid. We got
Yeah.
enough time with a lot of other things. And again, I don't know. I think it's hard when it comes to climaxes and endings to not
Mhm.
want to speed through it because you're kind of like hitting your stride and you're finally wrapping things up. But that was a note I had and several listeners had with the ending. What are your thoughts on the ending?
Yeah, so I understand the perspective that, you know what, not realistic that this all happened in one sunny afternoon. Maybe we
Mm-hmm.
could have spent time locked away. Lo could have spent time trying to get into, the tower, whatever.
Yeah.
I agree. I also feel like this is very typical for Ali Hazelwood endings,
Mm,
that she seeks resolution to the third act breakup
yeah.
very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's who she is
As a
as
writer.
as a writer, as a romantic comedy writer, right? This is her
Mm-hmm.
first paranormal, to my knowledge, as maybe a
Yeah.
first fantasy. So she doesn't have the background that we're accustomed to when it comes to fantasy novels. I
Yeah.
didn't expect her to execute something the way Sarah J. Maas would, because
Yeah.
that's not the focus of her writing. The focus of her writing are these character relationships and resolving the
Mm-hmm.
relationships. So
Such a good point.
yeah, yeah, it's fast, but I didn't come here for a fantasy story. I came here
Yeah.
for a romantic comedy.
That's fair. And to your point, she is very character bit like driven. Like her stories are character stories. We're not
Mm-hmm.
here for a larger political driven plot.
Right.
But her style of writing it's interesting. And this isn't a critique on her. So Ali, if you're listening, this is not a thing against you. But it is very much like okay, they've broken up and I don't want to live with this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want this. I don't want them to be upset. I don't want this to go on. This hurts me more than it hurts you. I'm going to put them
Yeah.
back together.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's okay. There are writers like that. They don't want
Mm.
to wallow in the angst, Jacqueline.
Who? Who?
So that's just not how some people are built, and that's not what some people come to read.
Yeah.
So, and I don't read Ali Hazelwood to have an angsty time. So
No, you're here for a good
I,
time, not a
I
painful time.
exactly. And I'm not here for a long time either. I'm here for the quick win, for the low hanging fruit.
I mean, my biggest complaint with this book is that it wasn't longer. Like, and I don't mean that in the sense that like this like the pacing was too fast. I mean, like, I'm mad that it's done.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
mad.
because you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm mad that I don't get to like relive that for the first time again.
Yeah.
It was just such a enjoyable time. I would love to see her, because we were saying that like truly, I think this book shows how far Allie's come as a writer.
I agree.
She's done a wonderful job. I would love to see more of these books that require action sequences that have a little bit more high stakes. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to see that in 4 books from now, because
Yeah.
I think that she's proven that she is capable of growing as a writer, which is impressive because not that this is anything bad, I support this entirely. She used to write fan fiction,
Right.
and she used to write Kylo Ren from Star Wars and Rey fiction.
Yeah. And this is the
And
first book of hers that I've read that I didn't see those tropes.
yeah, yeah, you're right. And it was like, it was a breakaway from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And and I think that you can see the progression of her breaking away from what she got into the scene for.
Yeah.
And absolutely knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
it makes me think that, I'm like, Ali, keep going with these fantasy, these paranormal.
Yeah.
I have full faith in you. I know in a couple books you will be fantastic. Not that she's not fantastic now.
I totally understand and I totally agree. I think that she's grown a lot as a writer, and depending what she wants of herself,
Yeah.
she could continue to grow as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
However, she has become popular in a very niche way that has a very specific formula and it works for her. She has made it work time and time again, and Bride is no different. And
Yeah.
so if
I mean,
this is
she
your
dabbled in the sense that it's like werewolves and vampires, but the formula is
right,
still there.
but the formula of the story
Mm-hmm.
structure is still there.
Yeah.
And if this is your first exposure to Ali Hazelwood and you're expecting something like all the other paranormal romances you've read, you're not going to get what you're looking for.
No.
But if you're here having read Ali Hazelwood, you enjoy her romantic comedy, you're going to enjoy this regardless of whether or not it's paranormal.
Yeah. And as someone who reads paranormal romance, I went on a journey of werewolf romance last year, and this was a breath of fresh air. Like,
Mhm.
I do not think werewolf romances are done very well. I think that, like, she was a breath of fresh air in two regards. One, if you are deep in paranormal romances, love
Mhm.
werewolves, it was just such, it was like, it was a formula that's so different. Even
Yep.
though it's very the same, you still have the mate trope, you still have all that stuff going on for you,
Right.
but in a rom-com way, and you're like,
Yeah.
what's going on? And then you have her rom-com loyalists, right?
Mhm.
But then you're adding werewolves and vampires, so I
Yeah.
think she had like a really good mix here. And
Mhm.
I just want to be like, Ali, continue, which based off of the ending, I don't think this is going to be a standalone.
Yeah, and I want to see it. I
Yeah. Oh,
think
yeah.
I would love for her to top the market in paranormal rom-com.
Yeah,
Like
give me that.
give give it to me. I want
Mm-hmm.
it because I don't know how much that actually has been done in mainstream publishing.
Yeah.
And I think she's shown me she can do it well. She has
Yep.
room for growth, but I'm excited to see what comes next.
Me too. Me too. Dear Ali, please let us be, I don't know, beta reader or something. Just talk,
Yeah,
please.
I was thinking that too. Let me be a beta reader, please.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like writing something, you're like, I don't know if I should do it. The answer is yes, you should.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it involves showing us.
Yep. Yep. So here's another, I guess, trope that was used that some of our listeners liked. The found family.
Mm,
Misery feeling like she didn't belong anywhere was sad, but it was well done. And I agree. I agree that Misery grappling with this idea of like what is family because she didn't
yeah,
get to grow up with family
yeah,
and learning the value of found family. It didn't feel tropey. It felt genuine
yeah,
because she didn't have family who loved her and who was there for her. Whereas, and I'm going to compare it to Akatar, right? Because we see Nesta with her found family
mm-hmm,
in Silver Flames,
mm-hmm,
but Nesta had sisters who would have done anything for her.
yeah,
So it's kind of a little annoying.
yeah,
Whereas Misery truly had no one. Um,
mm-hmm,
and so her idea of found family and allowing herself to grow that circle of found family was refreshing to me.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I think what makes it refreshing and the reason why I think it's done well is because there are elements that are grounded in reality. And I was just talking about this. I was doing a TikTok live earlier, and of like what makes fantasy good for me
Mm.
are the emotional parts that need to be super grounded in reality so
Yeah.
that you can believe all of these fantastical things. And for me, it's two elements. One, her dad being an absolute piece of crap. I'm trying
Yep.
not to curse because my mom. But and then does every single person have a parent who has sold them off as a collateral? No. But I think we all understand, whether they've had it or know people who have parents that aren't invested in their children's happiness and safety and everything. that kind
Mhm.
of put their own needs ahead of them. And then I think the part that really resonates is having a sibling you don't know how to communicate to as an adult.
Yep.
And whether it's siblings or cousins or whatever it is, but a family member that you're close to as kids, and then having to rediscover one another and figure out who you are as an adult. I
Yeah.
think that one for me is what makes it so real.
Yeah, I think so too. Kind of dovetailing off of that, I think for me, what I found really grounded in reality was this idea of Misery not having familial relationships that she
Mm-hmm.
understands, and then seeing someone else's familial relationships and being
Mm,
like, wow, I don't get it,
yeah.
but I want it. So, for
Yeah.
example, your relationship with your cousins.
Mm-hmm.
I have no relationship with my cousins. So I look at your relationship with your cousins and I'm like, wow, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my reality. It will never be my reality.
But
And
it's
so I
cool. It's always fun to see. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel that longing and I understand
Yeah.
that. So to me I really connected with that
Yeah.
aspect of Misery's journey.
Yeah. I always feel that way about sisters. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we have a friend, Nicole and her sister. Whenever I see them together, I'm always like, "Ah." Even like when your sisters come out, and I know there's an age difference and stuff, but I'm always like, sisters. Uh, I am a sucker for sisters. And yeah, but I also think that if there's a lot of people who are in their 20s and their 30s where I talk to my friends way more than I talk to my family. And I
Mm,
talk to my family a lot. Like, I
yeah.
talk to my mom a lot and I talk to my cousins a lot. But my friends are my family. That's
Yeah.
just kind of where that lands us. That's where we are, Amy. And as if you ever fought me on that. I think the found family trope works so well with a werewolf setting
Oh yeah.
because you're coming into a pack already.
Mm-hmm.
It lends itself really well for that, and I think
Yeah.
that's why it's very common for werewolf tropes, but at the same time it's not super common for werewolf again, just the werewolf romances that I've read. There's a certain amount of like they're already built into it, like they're werewolves
Yeah.
themselves, and maybe they're a long lost relative, but they're always werewolves, and
Mm-hmm.
Misery never stopped being an outsider.
Yeah.
She
Yep.
didn't suddenly become a werewolf. So it wasn't like, oh, you have werewolf blood in you. She was an outsider, and that did not change.
And you feel that otherness
Yeah.
very distinctly through her perspective,
Yeah.
which I think people can relate to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's funny. Growing up, I felt very othered from my
Mm.
family. Like, I don't look like them. I can't roll my R's. I'm Hispanic. And it's so funny how when I was a child, my blonde was natural, but me, a blonde white child, felt like an other to my
Yeah.
Hispanic family. And I was like, I had to really grow up and be like, hey, that's not you have that's not how that works.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They're the other in society. This next one comes out to my friend Sam. Shout out Sam. It was funny. When she messaged me, she's like, I'm reading the book for the podcast. I was like, great. And then I went to sleep. And then I woke up because she's in England and I'm here and there's a time difference. And then I woke up and it was like, okay, I finished the book. I'm like, what the?
Sam.
What are you? Sam, are you okay? She's just so fast. Okay, so she says, easy read, fun, well written, not cringe. Love that the protagonist is not a victim. Huge, huge, huge.
Yeah, I agree. And that really has to do with the victim's perspective, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the victim's perspective, wow, the protagonist's perspective, because there are enough elements for the protagonist to assume that they are a victim.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like that as a vampire, despite having been treated poorly her entire
Mm-hmm.
life as collateral, as
Mm-hmm.
other, she's still like, I'm at the top of the food chain. Like, I'm not the victim here.
Yeah, yeah. And she also wasn't afraid to say when other people's bullshit was bullshitting. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like, especially that part where that other werewolf, like, almost tried to kill her in the hallway. And I
Yeah.
was like, God, I hope this isn't one of those, like, I'm just going to take this in silence. She was like, that bitch over there,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
one who did it. And, you know, she was strong. She never questioned her value,
Mm-hmm.
even though her value is constantly being questioned.
Yeah.
And I think she had a good understanding of other people's problems.
Yeah.
Like, that's their problem.
Yeah.
And I think she also realizes that she dodged a bullet not being accepted by the vampires and not being raised by them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, yeah, I agree. I think what I see in Misery is a resilience as a result of her childhood,
Yeah.
right? Of
Yeah.
being that collateral in the human world, being, pushed around, pushed
Mhm.
out,
Mhm.
and having that friendship that she has with Serena, who she has certainly learned a lot from, which
Mhm.
is just this stubbornness of I take up space and I'm going to keep that space and nobody's going to take that space from me
Yeah.
because, no one else has given me a lot. I'll take what I can for myself. And I appreciate that. And I think that that made both Serena
Mhm.
and Misery very real to me.
Yeah.
And just I could forgive the virginity because she was such a stubborn character, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
She wasn't a woe is to me, I'm a victim and I'm a virgin. It was just a nope, I'm here. I'm gonna call you out on your bullshit. I
I
just happen to
also
be a virgin.
she just happens to be a virgin. Yes. I also think when it comes to like Misery, while you're saying that she's very much like, hey, I'm here, I'm going to take up space, which all of that is yes, she can be a complex character and
Mm-hmm.
also still struggle with not having anything of her own.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. Like, she was just existing. And
Mm-hmm.
talk about a thing that so many people relate to, that stresses me out, that stresses other people out, where it's like, you live your life, you go to work, you come home, and then are you happy with that? And I think it was, I mean, she wasn't happy, but she was like getting by, because she was like, I'm just surviving, like, I'm
Yeah.
just happy not to be where I was before. And Serena was one who pushed her to say, look, you need to find something that's other than me.
Mm-hmm.
And while it was harsh, she's not wrong.
Yeah.
And Misery discovered that, and she's the one who got there eventually. But I do love that you can have a protagonist that is both strong and struggling.
Yeah. And that's the complexity we enjoy in
Mm-hmm.
characters like Favorite and Bryce,
Yeah. Yep.
right? They are strong in these areas and they really, really struggle and are damaged in these other areas.
Yeah. And I don't think that that was a thing that was introduced at the beginning and then given up. Because I
Right.
think sometimes, whether it's this or other books that we've discussed, or other things in general, other books, I do think sometimes like authors will introduce something at the top, and it's like, and here's their struggle, and now this isn't going to impact anything they do for the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
book, but I started off with this, so they're just like you. This was something that I felt like was true to her character, and it was a byline that kept being true.
Yeah.
And part of the things that she resolved at the end was that choice of like, oh no, this is what I want. This is how I want
Yeah.
to live my life.
I agree. I think that, and that's what I do think Ali Hazelwood has done the best out
Mm-hmm.
of the books I've read of hers in this
Mm-hmm.
book is that I'm not just putting two quirky characters together and then writing about sex.
Yeah.
It's I'm putting two characters that have flaws that they're still working through
Yeah.
and letting that lead the narrative.
Yep. Well said. Wow. You
Thank
should
you.
have a podcast. So let's get into the conversation of Misery. We've, as if we haven't been talking about her, but let us continue. So there's no way of talking about Misery without talking about her personality and her sense of humor. And it is such a mixed bag when it comes
Yeah.
to it. I will say, from my own personal, it took me a beat to get on board with her, because it
Oh,
was just
really?
like shoving down my throat. And then once I was there, don't get me wrong, but
Mhm,
it was
mhm.
initially kind of like a okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I didn't struggle. I think it's because her writing style is my preferred flavor of funny,
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
is what it is. And maybe in my head, I think I speak like Ali Hazelwood's characters. Maybe that might be part of it. I just really connect with it, so I really enjoy it. I think, I don't know, how can you not love
I
someone who's like, "Go away, child. I want nothing to do with you."
I do love Misery. I think part of my initial thing was she felt like me, like I related to her, but before my bipolar medication and if I was on Red Bull. Like if I was just like before things calmed down and like cranked up to 100, I mean, I think I do love the like, yeah, go be gone, child, go. It is hilarious. I think that for me, that's what it was, where I was like, oh, we're really being sarcastic, which is
Yeah.
hilarious because I love sarcasm, but
Mhm,
it
mhm.
was like dialed to 10.
Yeah.
And, good for her for not trying to introduce it to the reader in a slow way. Like it was like, because Misery is a 10
Yeah.
personality wise, and she was a 10 from the start, 10 from the ending. My cousin, Evelyn, shout out, we were texting and she was just like, immediately was like, this is my favorite character all time.
I totally an Evelyn character too. I would totally believe it.
You're my Tauruses, you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's funny when you're like, she's what I am, and I'm like, what? And then you said the go away child. I'm like, yeah, there it is.
Mhm.
There's the
That's
there's the
me.
Amy I know.
I think we don't expect the inner monologue to sound the way Misery sounds, because so much of the inner monologue we read in other books
Mm-hmm.
is palatable to everyone,
Yeah.
and it is not unique to the character.
Mm-hmm.
And what we most often get in Ali Hazelwood's books, I believe, and more so in this book, is
Mm-hmm.
you are truly in the character's head.
Yeah.
Being in
Yep.
Jacqueline's head would be a very unique experience,
I would not recommend it.
just like being in Misery's head is a very unique experience. And you have to be ready to take that on.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone is the first time they're going to read this book. And
I think you're
I
right.
get that.
Yeah. I love that you bring up her inner monologue, because maybe because like we just this week the episode of From Blood and Ash came out, so I was doing a lot of editing there.
Mm-hmm.
But it reminds me of something that you said, where inner monologues don't always match the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to Misery, her inner monologue, sometimes some things she kept to herself, like you
Yeah.
would for anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was still Misery. There
Yeah.
was no difference between the personalities inside her head versus not
Mm-hmm.
inside her head.
Yep.
Those were still the same. And yet she still managed to hold back the way that anyone would hold back. And to
Yep.
be able to do that is very impressive, especially with a character like Misery, who isn't afraid to say a lot of things.
Exactly. And it is refreshing for the narrative to match the dialogue
Mm-hmm.
of your protagonist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because because if we go back to From Blood and Ash, since that's what came out this week, it is such a disconnect.
Yeah.
But then to go into, and I would say that's sometimes the case in A Court of Thorns and Roses,
Yep.
but maybe less of a case in Crescent City.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. That's
So
a great comparison. Sometimes Farah was way funnier in her head than she ever would talk out loud.
yeah, it's true. It's true. Or just not funny at all.
Yeah, she had her moments. She had her moments.
Sometimes.
I think that Allie nailed the translation between
Yeah.
head to voice.
Yep. 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 Which I think is important in especially first person narrative
Yeah.
styles.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to bring up that's not in the comments and is that I love that she only knew how to defend herself enough. I love that she went to self-defense classes because she's, enough people have tried to kill her off. That was hilarious. So it's like
Yeah.
after the 5th time, you kind of have to
Yeah.
learn how to protect yourself. But it's also so she could put up a fight, but it was never like, okay, you're a warrior. I'll trust you. You can walk around safely. It was like, okay, you were able to hold your own because you fought against a teenager who's not prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. She knew enough to be a danger to herself and to others, but not to cause true harm.
Yeah.
I agree that she's powerful. She's an apex predator who doesn't really know how to do her thing and be that apex predator.
I know she can't even do the hypno thing very well. She's like, this is what you've got 15 minutes of this with me, then that's it.
Which I appreciate because no one trained her.
Yeah.
It's totally believable.
And we didn't get this moment, and I was kind of anticipating it, not in a way that I was upset that it didn't happen or upset that if it would have happened, but just more in the way that modern fiction has trained me of her being some kind of special vampire who her dad has experimented on or something, and she's actually a natural at all these things. Nope, she just never studied enough. She never was trained, so
Yeah, I
that's
mean, when you lead a really mediocre life, but
it's true.
When you live as collateral, what else can you expect?
Yeah.
I appreciated that at the end of the day, what made Misery special was her capacity for empathy.
Yeah.
And her capacity to find value in individuals unlike herself. And that was her superpower. And that is what makes her special when you look at all the other people around her. So I think it was a great choice from a writing perspective, because it would have been a total cop-out if she was special somehow, and somehow that's what led to her finding Serena.
I love that what made her special was her compassion and understanding that she always had the ability for compassion. She went into living with Lo I'm a hard bitch who only cares about my best friend, and that's it. And I have no emotions. And then it's okay, maybe I do have emotions. And it's not because vampires aren't capable of it. It's just how she was raised. And she mentioned so many times, well, this isn't what vampires do. This isn't what they do. And even though she wasn't raised completely there, she still spent her first 7 years with the vampires and the rest of the time being ignored. So yes, she's going to have these issues. So her greatest superpower became emotional intelligence.
Yeah, which
I love. It's great.
I think honestly, in real life, emotional intelligence is a superpower, and a lot of people lack it. And speaking from personal experience, it's what makes me really good at my job. Because I read people really well in a way that others can't.
Yep.
So it is a superpower. Don't underestimate it.
I was watching a video on TikTok, and it was different clips of showing Travis Kelce's emotional intelligence.
And
it was hot. I was like, ooh, baby, please talk about how this hurt your feelings and how you grew from it. I like it when you heal.
So even though we liked how maybe Misery didn't have a superpower, some of our listeners pointed out that they didn't necessarily like Misery, that they didn't feel like she grew, that she had the same issues at the start as she did at the end. And I can see a case for that, right? She didn't go from being untrained to super trained. What are your thoughts, Jack?
I think the parts that changed from her are subtle, and it makes it harder. And because the things that we were just talking about of her, the things that she gained was emotional intelligence and realizing that she doesn't hate everyone. And those were the big things that made her grow. It's not a loud ta-da, you know, here's the character arc. And it is subtle, and I think it can be overshadowed by such a large personality. So because Misery is so funny, is so loud, it could overpower these moments of growth. I would say that she's not the same person at the beginning and at the end, but her personality never changes. And that's not a bad thing. It just makes it hard when things do change. Again, personality's notched up to 10. So when this other thing happens, it's hard to like it's hard for some people to like say, "Oh yes, that's either A, I don't see that change, or B, that's not a big enough change." Because personality's at 10.
Yeah, I mean, to continue that metaphor, if the change dial is at a 1 and the personality is at a 10, the change is hard to notice. You know, and when it's the opposite, the change is really obvious, but the personality is extremely lacking.
How dare you say that about Farrah? Were you? Or was that just my brain?
I wasn't, but now I am.
Who were you thinking? Who were you thinking when you said that?
I wasn't thinking of anyone.
Oh,
I was
me neither. Me neither.
I was talking in the hypotheticals.
No, me neither. I'm sure this is like, I need to go back to listen to season 1 of that, because I'm sure like season 1 of me would be like, she had so much personality. Leave her alone. But it's been so much fun so far.
We're so far gone from season 1. I can't remember anything that was said.
We were different people then.
We really were.
I know. We get to sit in chairs now.
It's great.
Okay, so let's go into love and relationship. Lowe, also known as Lowe's Hardware Store. Lowe's Hardware should have sponsored this episode. That's what they should have done.
Yeah.
I mean, before we read comments, thoughts on Lowe, Amy?
So I think this goes back to what we were saying earlier. Does he have a lot of personality? Without the little snippets at the beginning of every chapter, it would be hard to tell. And the little snippets at the start of the chapter kind of make you root for him and for him in Misery. I don't know that he's the material of worthy to be my fictional boyfriend.
Yeah, fair.
But I loved him for Misery.
I love him for her. I adore him. Just because I don't want to pin his photo on my wall. I don't have any. The only man who's on my wall is this.
The raccoon.
The raccoon.
Captain Raccoon.
Captain Raccoon. It's a pirate raccoon. But he was perfect for Misery in so many ways. There were times where I actually did question if this is the right personality for her.
Well, and let's think about it from a writing perspective. You can't have 2 characters dialed to 10.
No.
Nobody would read that shit.
No.
So the fact that he is so dialed down and reserved is really important in making Misery as a female protagonist work.
Yeah. And I think that, like, I'm, going back to what I was just saying, and it kind of dawned on me, was like, there were moments where I wasn't sure if he was the right one for her. I think that's a smart strategical move as a writer, because it becomes so obvious that they're mates. Like, it's obvious from the get-go that they're mates, but at least there's like attempts of turning it down, of like, oh, maybe they're not mates. Maybe this isn't the right one for her. Even though we all know they're mates, except for Misery. I do love Misery, but that's like dumb level. I just want one day, I want a female character who can figure it out quickly.
Well, the reason why I allowed it is because genetically she doesn't know it to have ever been possible.
Yeah.
And mates is a foreign concept to her. No one's ever told her that it's possible for a werewolf and a vampire to be mates. So I can believe it. That doesn't make her any less dumb, but I can accept the dumb.
I can accept that Ali did a good job of setting up why this world would be like, it's impossible.
Right.
It's like when I realized that beluga whales and narwhals could have babies. I didn't know that was possible.
What?
Yeah, I know.
What?
I'm still shocked. And it's adorable.
I need to Google this.
Apparently there's a narwhal that's hanging out with a bunch of belugas, and they like accepted him, and they're just a bunch of like male belugas that are just cruising around, and now that they're like ready to mate, they're just like searching for some lady belugas. And so and there's evidence that narwhals and belugas have had babies before because they found skeletal remains that were just super trippy, and then they did DNA testing. So now I think they called them a narluga or something. I know.
This is amazing.
If narwhals and belugas can make it work,
Then vampires and werewolves can too.
science. I was actually complaining about it to our friend Nicole, where I was like, why do like narwhals and belugas get other options? Like, why can't we have another option? Like, why can't we have aliens? That's what I want.
I'm
Or
sorry.
vampire werewolf. I'll accept it.
Except they would still be in LA and they would still suck.
No, they'd be from outer space, Amy. And then that would be Men of LA. Dear Lord. Okay, someone said that they liked the enemies to lovers. I don't think this was an enemies to lovers book. This was one person has a misunderstanding of they don't like me, and they're actually have always wanted me from the get-go. I don't know what trope that's called, but I do think that this, and I've seen that done several times, I do think that gets categorized as enemies to lovers too often.
I mean, I feel like you can't look at this book in a vacuum. You have to look at it in the context of all of Ali Hazelwood's other books. Every book that I've read by her has been enemies to lovers. But
is it enemies?
It's not. It is perceived. It is perceived enemies to lovers. And sometimes that can be enough if in the protagonist's mind they are enemies.
Yeah.
Because they approach every encounter as enemies.
I want a different name for the trope. Perceived enemies to lovers. Because if you tell me enemies to lovers, I want someone to stab someone first.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I want like them to be like, I want to spit on your grave, you know? Like that's the kind of love I want in my books.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like angry puppy to lovers. Like, it's angry at the wall. Like, it doesn't know what it's actually angry at.
Angry puppy to lovers is the most accurate description of this book. It is of this book, of the genre of like angry puppy to lovers. That's so funny. So another person says, though, when it comes to the negative side of things, is that it was so slow, it felt like most of the book was built up romantically.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, it was a slow burn. I don't know how to fight that. I guess if you come into this thinking it's going to be a smutty book, you're going to
be disappointed.
Yeah, you expect smut a lot sooner, and that was not the case with this.
No. This is a tease. This is a teasy book.
Yeah, I mean, it's a misunderstood angry puppy who can't understand anybody else to eventually lovers with a little bit of sex.
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, I love a slow burn. This is like where we were talking about it when we did our Crescent City read, and when Bryce and Hunt finally hooked up, I was kind of sad, where I'm like, oh, I liked it when their hands brushed, and it was like tension. So I am a sucker for tension. It's such a I want like the majority to be tension and build up, but then I want a novella of just smut with them. Like that's how I want to live my life.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to do that with my own book, where it's like, I'm sorry that you had to wait this long. Here's the book, but like, here's a novella where they just screw the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think this is definitely, it's angst in a different way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a different source of tension. And I love it. I don't know. Like, if that's not your style and your taste, that's fine. But God, I love it. I eat it up.
Yeah, I will say that this book is definitely not for everyone, because it does play on a lot of extremes, right? It plays on the extremeness of Misery's personality. Yeah. It plays on the extremeness of the whole slow burn.
Yeah.
It plays on,
It's a very extreme book. Like, even with like the concept of vampires and werewolves, that's also extreme too.
Yeah, and it plays its tropes hard
Yeah.
and fast and well. But if you don't like those tropes, like, this is not the book for you.
Yeah, you have to be aligned with the tropes to get into it.
Yeah.
And you're right, this is like the Fast and Furious of tropes of like of books.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining Ali Hazelwood like turning up with that little Tokyo or that Tokyo Drift song. I would play it, but we cannot afford any copyright stuff. So
no.
Yeah, it's a hard and fast trope. Once Lo and Misery were kind of starting to feel each other, and again, like, it's impressive that it did feel like a slow burn because it is such a short book.
Yeah.
And to get that done is such a good job, where once they were starting to kind of flirt and starting to
get physical.
I do love Misery's acceptance of it, their physical side. I think she was like on board with it pretty quickly. She's like, well, I'm horny. I guess I
like you.
Yeah, and it's like, what am I gonna do with it? Nothing. Like, we're married. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, it was definitely she was go from the second she was like, wait a minute, is this sexual tension?
It's true. She's like, let me just lean in.
Yeah,
it's fine.
She leaned in, and I do love it. Like, she never once fought her attraction for him. She was just like, sexy werewolf husband. Okay. I'm supposed to just do nothing with him?
Yeah, right.
Fools, all of you.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that is aligned with her character. I also liked that she just kind of leaned into the whole nodding thing.
We'll save that. I'm saving that for last.
Okay, which we will save for last. But I think was in line with everything else about her. Like, yes. I'm married to this man. I think I'm attracted to him. Might as well have sex. Might as well not.
Yeah. Just like,
might as well.
Might as well. You know what? We should all, she's known as Might As Well Misery. And may we all have that same perspective. Might as well. What would Misery do? Might as well. No, why not? Truly, I think I'd be a happier person.
Honestly,
might as well.
Yeah. Because, what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't happen.
Right? Okay, here are some negatives that I think is fair to discuss. Third act breakup.
Yeah, I think that's just part of Ali Hazelwood's formula that she's comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Was it necessary? How else was she going to get kidnapped? That's my question. Okay, never mind. Was Misery's kidnapping necessary? Because if you think Misery's kidnapping was necessary, then does that inherently mean the breakup was necessary? From a plot perspective.
I would have liked a fight over a breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe... No, I'm going to categorize this as a breakup. I think that this was a clear, I'm not interested in you. And I think what makes it hard to consume, and I will agree with this, is that it didn't feel true to Lo to suddenly back out of his emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just had sex. They just did, he finally got to have what he's been wanting with her, and she finally admits her feelings for him. And I think at that point it felt like he was trying to get her to admit things, if I remember correctly, but it felt like, come on, like, be on my level. And then she finally gets it, and then he backs out, and it was definitely for the sake of, like, romantically, that was their climax, right? Because the plot had other stuff happening. So plot wise, there were other things that they was working towards the climax, but their romantic story, that was the climax. I think that could have been done in an argument, and I think that would have made her kidnapping more fun if she had marched off, if he had let her, if they had just gotten it. And it wouldn't have had to be a breakup. It could have been like, I'm cooling off.
Yeah, I mean, she could have run away from the knot and gone outside to cool down and been like, you know what, I'm going to lean in, and that's when she gets kidnapped.
Something, right? Like, and there's where and then it hurts us all. Yeah, I think that the third act breakup it's going to be inevitable for romance books for some, because there's only so many things you can do when it comes to romance books. Like,
Yeah.
you're trying to build tension somewhere, and there has
Yeah.
to be a peak one point. So of course you're going to have to, and breakup is one of those options. I don't fault her for it. I think it's the way that it happened. I try not to say that I don't like, but the way that it went down with Lo didn't seem completely authentic to him.
Yeah, it did. I think you're right that it didn't feel authentic to him. We had one of our listeners write, him gaslighting her and removing her agency for her benefit was an eye roll,
Mm,
basically.
mm-hmm.
And I think it is, like you said, it didn't feel authentic.
Yeah.
Could it be him getting cold feet? Could it be him doubting the maintenance? Could it be her finding out about the mate stuff and then being like, I freaking out about it? I think there were a lot of other opportunities. And I think this is an example of Ali Hazelwood going with something that she thinks is familiar.
Yeah.
And it's easy to fall into that comfort zone when
Mm-hmm.
everything else about the book is so new and uncomfortable.
And I really have faith in Allie. Like, I think she can do so well with whatever she puts her mind to. Not that this wasn't done well. Like, dear Allie, if
Yeah.
you're listening to this is no way, shape, or form like you failed this. No, I agree. This was a new book. This was new territory. I would have loved the romantic climax to be new as well and
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And it's not, but
But there's more opportunity
yeah.
for growth.
Yeah.
And maybe she learns from this and tries something new in the next book.
I think she will. I really support her. Like, after like reading this, I just like, and I always liked her book, but like after reading this, I get so excited when I see authors just grow and just do really well, and you're like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what you do down the line,
Yeah.
because it's only going to get better. And I wonder how much of it was her comfort level, how much of it was editor and publisher's comfort level.
Yeah.
She's trying to sell a romance book, and she's fine, and she's stepping into paranormal romance. So, there's a lot of reasons why that could have been. But that's also like the danger of having a first person point of view, and you never really get a shift out of it. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know what's in his head. We got the little snippets, and I think that it wasn't quite enough at that point to justify his actions there.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. And maybe that's the next branch of Ali Hazelwood's exploration is dual POV.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's a lost opportunity in this book. Maybe she wasn't ready to make that move. But I think that while this book was not necessarily perfect, I think she did take risks where she could, and I think those risks paid off, and I hope she
continues to take risks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, agreed. I would like someone to just like package this episode neatly and send it to her, because like I just want her to like be like, you have a team.
We'll be your cheerleaders.
We're your cheerleaders. We support you, Allie. We believe in you. One of my favorite comments, and I'm gonna say I believe in this thoroughly. Misery will always be asleep in the day, and he will not. The longevity of this relationship is questionable. I felt that. That as who was with someone who we did not have the same
you
schedules.
Guys did not. And he wasn't a vampire.
No, it would have helped. It's just really hard to have the same schedules, and I did think about that while I was reading this. I did think, I'm like, but when are you guys? Someone's gonna have to sacrifice a little.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, she does mention it towards the end when they're trying to figure out their sex schedule.
Maybe it makes sense for two independent people who are not used to relying on other people. I don't know that it's realistic.
It's funny. It's just a funny note.
But we do suspend our disbelief for a lot of things when it comes to paranormal.
Absolutely.
And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, but I think it's worth bringing back. One of our listeners said, I hate a breakup / miscommunication immediately after intimacy. It infuriates me. It is so common in romance, in writing. And I think it's because if it's too happy, too often, too long, you know, what's the point of the book?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like authors are often, or authors are regularly trying to balance the seesaw of, okay, it's really, really great, but let's add more
Yeah.
tension. We had great sex, but tension, you know, and I understand why they do it, but it would be really, really nice if that's not the cause of tension.
Agreed. I'm coming from this, revealing a little bit of my life personally here. I'm coming from this as someone who did have a breakup immediately after intimacy,
Mm,
and it didn't go well, and it wasn't fun. And actually, I could argue it happened twice.
mm,
And it was actually it felt very dehumanizing. It felt like he knew what was going to happen after, and yet you chose to sleep with me anyway.
yeah.
And it was not a fun feeling. And it's fine if you're going to do it. They do not explore the ramifications of it, because it was like very hard for me for a while just to not be like, I'm never going to forgive you for this. And not, I mean, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't talk to them ever since after that. But it did take a while for me to like get past just the hurt of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And it is such a romanticized way of going about things, of like the immediate rejection after intimacy, where it's like, how are these women not screaming and raging and being like, wait, you had sex with me knowing that you weren't going to be with me after? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, it's just so, it's something that when I read it really irritates me, because the female characters do not have the, I feel like, appropriate response
Yeah.
to that, and then forgive way too quickly, because
Yeah.
that's a betrayal of trust.
How do you not feel used?
Oh yeah, no, you do, absolutely.
And I agree. I don't think that the consequences of that and the emotional fallout for the female
Mm-hmm.
character is explored enough. And I think it's just, I don't want to call it lazy because I know that it's grounded in reality.
Yeah, yeah,
But I would like to see us try something different.
yeah. Also, if you want me to believe that this is a good guy wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter, especially like, think of Zayden, like, he's a morally gray character. Okay, but at his heart, he's good. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
don't pull this
Yeah.
morally gray shit. Like,
Yeah.
at his heart, he's a good guy who's trying to help other students and stuff, right? And the same thing with Lo. At the end of the day, he was always a good guy. He was like, there was never a moment of doubting, is Lo good or not?
Yeah.
And if you want me to believe in this male character,
Mm-hmm.
then he will value her
Yeah.
and what she is feeling comfortable enough with to have sex with him, and he will value that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just not what we're seeing.
So this makes me think of
Mm-hmm.
the one bed at the end scene in Mist and Fury. And the reason why that worked
Mm-hmm.
is because the miscommunication was on the woman's part
Yep.
before intimacy was initiated,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And we see Rhysand set basically like, I'll take whatever I can get
Yeah.
because he's a good man who wants this woman.
Yeah, and he was never rejecting her. That's the other thing. Is
Right.
like Pharaoh
Right.
was the one who was rejecting him. And like you said, they communicated that before things
Mm-hmm.
happened. She
Mm-hmm.
said, I just want a little bit of fun.
Yep.
So
Yep.
things were communicated at the top
Yeah.
of, hey, this is casual. I don't want anything more. Misery is a virgin. And here we are,
Mm-hmm.
third book in a row with this freaking sexy virgin trope. But again, I will forgive this one a little bit more than I have for the other two, because it does feel like Misery has lived a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we are once again getting a sexy virgin
Mm-hmm.
who
Mm-hmm.
then immediately gets screwed over by a man.
Yeah.
Not only are you
Yeah.
using a woman's body at this point for your own pleasure, you are manipulating her first experience
Yeah.
to get what you want, and then not respect her.
So I think I'm saying if we're going to have miscommunication, at least put the woman in a position of power
Mm-hmm.
and let her be the one intentionally miscommunicating.
Agreed. Or if you're going to do it, have him be clear at the top. Have someone be clear of what it is, like saying, hey, this is just going to be a casual thing. Have the woman have a choice, because both with this book and with Poppy, at least Persephone, Haiti never left her, but like at least with Poppy and Misery, these are two women who did not consent to their partner leaving immediately after.
Right.
They did not consent to this. They consented to being with the man that they have spent days, months, whatever long it is, trusting and feeling like, yes, I can trust you with this.
Yep.
And then for them to immediately pull the wool over their heads. And that's what makes it hard, where it's like, why I don't jive with it as much is because I don't think Lo would do that.
I agree.
Yeah. So let's get into the final most important part. And this is not to say that this isn't important. I would not say that it's the focus of this book.
Okay.
I think you're not having it with me right now.
I'm not.
If there's anything that I've learned in this book, and there's anything I learned from this comments and answer section, Amy, with when we put out like, hey, what do people like? There are two types of people in the world. People who don't like nodding in their books, and then us.
Yeah. This is, so I was introduced to nodding very young. Too young, mind you. However, I thought this was an excellent introduction to nodding. This is the dipping of the toe in the pool. And if you didn't like it, avoid it. Good for you. But if you liked it,
if you read
a whole new world out there for you.
If you read this and thought, I
could get on board.
That's interesting. I don't hate it. Someone did say, I didn't understand it, but I don't hate it. And I'm like, what so what this is called is Omegaverse.
So this is Omegaverse Light.
This is intro to Omegaverse.
Right. This is just nodding, which is a physiological reality for animals.
Okay, this is when you say it like this, it does make it sound bad. But hear us out, listener. I was trying to find justification and I lost it. Continue. You continue.
So on a physical level, it's intriguing because of the potential pleasure that comes from it. There's an intimacy factor in it.
So essentially, we have to just talk about what it is. It's a swollen gland at the base of the man's penis. This is on camera, so I'm also like getting so red. It's a swollen gland it's a gland, I guess, that swells, and you do see it with animals and dogs and stuff. And it's meant to keep the cum inside the female partner, so that none of it comes out, so that there's a better chance of impregnation.
And part of it is it locks the two together, right? The two genitalia get locked together like puzzle pieces, and you're stuck there. You
cannot get out,
right? Until the knot goes down.
And depending on the story, so the thing that makes this Omegaverse light is that they're werewolves and there's justification.
Well, for me,
some Omegaverse, they're just humans that have it.
Right. It's also Omegaverse light because we're only dealing with alphas. We're not dealing with betas and omegas, which is a whole other thing. We're not dealing with heat. We're not dealing with rutting. Those are deep into the Omegaverse.
You're listing off like the poor listener that has never understood Omegaverse. Like, rutting?
What is this? Well, and that's why I would almost not classify this as Omegaverse.
No, this is not Omegaverse, but you're next to the Megaverse pond, and you're looking at it, and you say, that kind of looks like a nice pond.
Yeah.
What if I get into it?
And I feel like I need to cool down.
Yeah, I guess. Because I promise you, it's going to heat you up. But it's
anyway. Yeah, so nodding, if it's not for you, no harm, no foul. If you enjoyed it,
Get ready, because your world is about to open up.
it is interesting for this to be in mainstream because this is a huge,
Oh yeah,
huge genre in
fan
fan
fiction.
fiction,
Yeah,
in Japanese manga. You
it's
know,
very
again,
subculture.
it is, yeah, it is. And so it was shocking to me when I was like, wait, this was a traditionally published
I
book.
know. Again, I'm blown away that Ali convinced her editors. Like, I really think someone was just really drunk or something, or just didn't get the memo. I would like to give credit where credit is due and say that Amy was the one who introduced me to Omegaverse. You look so proud of yourself, as you
I
should
am
be.
very proud of
You should
myself.
be. And I think the first time I read one, I was like, what just happened? What's just going on? And
Mm,
it was, granted, I jumped in. Like, I did not go light. I was like, I'm going full force. And
mhm,
it
mhm.
was like, like, I mean, once you get into the whole like heat aspect of it, it's like a stranger pins another stranger, and there's like a lot of other stuff. It's all questionable.
It is, and there's huge debate about consent, lack of consent, in Omegaverse
Yeah.
fiction, and some authors handle it really well, some do not,
Mm-hmm.
and which is why I think Ali Hazelwood avoided that shit as much as she
Yes.
could.
She had that answered right off the bat. And I
Hmm.
also think another big thing when it comes to, a megaverse and nodding and all that is the pregnancy aspect of it, right?
Hmm.
Because it's just another variation of pregnancy kink, which, oh
Yeah,
no, breeding kink, because
reading.
as we know with past seasons, everyone likes a breeding kink, no one likes a pregnancy trope.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And by everyone they mean Jack.
no, our listeners, I pulled this. I did a poll and our listeners agreed. Breeding kinks allowed. So I think this also solves the other issue when it comes to I love it because this really does show like Allie's fan fiction roots.
Hmm.
But I think it also does a lot to avoid the breeding question of it, because that's
Yeah,
what Omegaverse and the knot and all that stuff is about, right? Is like
right.
about keeping it all in. And to say that not that Misery and Low can't have kids, it would just be so close to impossible and so rare
Hmm.
that we
Hmm.
don't have to worry about the like, wait, but the cum is still inside her. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
still
yeah.
there. And also like she did handle it. She was very, very PG with the knot. Like, and like the fact that like it only comes out with your mate.
I mean, talk about brilliant, honestly.
Yeah.
And again, because we're dealing with different genetics, different species, there's no such
Mm-hmm.
thing as heat, there's no such thing as omega. Like,
Yeah.
she took away a lot of the questionable aspects of that genre
Mm-hmm.
and made it palatable
Yeah.
for people who've not yet been introduced to it.
She left us the things that matter. And that's not.
Except the way that you said it sounded like snot.
It's not. I Yeah, I think one of my like when I closed the book and I looked around and no one was near me, and I wish I could, I wish we were allowed to text each other for these things and not save it
Hmm.
for recording, but I looked around and I was like, my biggest complaint, not enough nodding. You're
Yeah,
telling
yeah.
me you're saving that till the very end? How dare you?
Well, if she is introducing readers to nodding, I think it's appropriate for it to be at the end because she wants them to at least finish the story
Mm-mm.
before she gets to that point.
I would love the next book because I think she teases it up for the next book,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
want I want it from the start. I want it beginning, middle, end. It's what was it? Someone, let me pull up the comments. Someone who was like, just it's not their thing, and they read like they did a quote, and it was something that they didn't like. So this was under the negatives, and they couldn't handle it. But when he said "pop a knot," like "pop my knot," or like something about my knot,
Mm-hmm,
and they're
mm-hmm.
like, "I didn't like it." I was like, "Oh yeah, no. If you're not ready, then that's fine."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let's get into some other aspects of the romance rather than nodding. I want to give credit where credit is due. and that is the airplane scene.
That was a hot scene.
It
It
was
was
such-
unexpected.
It was unexpected.
I was just like, whoa, that was fun.
And all he did was like smell her and rub up. No, he like licked her. Oh, he kissed her neck and stuff. Yeah, it was great. It was really nice. And then it goes into the library scene. I felt like the progression of their romantic side was good. Like it starts off with just like tense, and then it's like him, making out with her neck.
Right, he's scenting her, right?
Yeah.
He's rubbing his pheromones on her so that she smells like him to prevent a bad situation. I loved the necessity of it. I loved the necessity of them feeding.
Yeah.
Right, and then he's like, oh wow, I really enjoyed that. The necessity and the unexpected enjoyment were hot.
Oh yeah.
And I think done very well, and not all authors can pull that off.
Yeah.
As successfully.
If the whole scenting thing was like making her smell like his pheromones was so important, I think the first thing I would have done getting off that airplane was take a very intense bath. So that
he had to do it again?
Yes.
Nice.
I would be like, it's so weird. I had to take a shower. Help.
Help, please.
Here, show me. Here's my neck. Is that what you need? Yeah, no, I think you did it. You said it well. I think sometimes when it comes to romantic scenes with smutty books and stuff, and the whole genre of it is like, are the sex scenes necessary? And not all sex scenes have to be necessary. I think I have read plenty of books that they're there for the fun, and I am okay with it. Ali Hazelwood makes them necessary, especially for this book, and I just enjoy it that much more.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like they were full-blown smutty scenes, right? They were suggestive. They were starting to get hot.
Yeah.
You could feel the attraction. And then they get cut short.
Yeah.
And that's part of the slow burn appeal. That's part of the tension appeal. And that's why, to me, the end is satisfying, because she did all that work.
Yeah.
For me to be like, oh my God, please just give it to me.
Please, somebody. Now, my other thing, I'll say it's my gripe, and this is where I think she had a sentence to excuse it, so I'll allow it. But my issue is always when things just fit and work the first time women have sex. Now, there's Ali throws in the like, we're mates, like the things just fit, so it's perfect and everything is fine. But you're still giving me, to me, that falls under sexy virgin trope of like, her first time. You're telling me her first time is bento, is like doggy style, which makes sense because he's a wolf. But you're telling me that she is bent over and that's her first time is going to be from that angle. And like, even if it's supposed to work, I don't know. It's still like, those are always hard for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only saving grace I'm going to give to Hazelwood is that she is not the author I expect more work from in this regard. Does that make sense? Just because of the genre of her book. Now, if she took on that challenge, it would be a pleasant surprise. But I don't expect it from her, right? I don't expect it from the romantic comedy genre.
I would expect it more from the romantasy people.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, I would put that onus on if you have a fantasy, like, larger plot element going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This is such a microcosm of a moment in time for these characters. Whereas I look at the romantasy genre and you think about the long-term growth of the characters along a long series of plot lines.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't expect it. I would love to see someone do it. Do I think Ali Hazelwood could do it and make it fun and worthwhile? I do.
Yeah.
I don't expect it from her because of what I know she's written before.
If there's anyone who I think could do it well, because like, what I'm looking for is a first time sex scene that makes sense, and I just don't see that in romance books and romantasy books. Like, it's just always a pressure and then pleasure and stuff, and it's always internal penetration that makes a woman come the first time. Also, like, there's just a lot of aspects. If there's anyone that I feel like could experiment with the idea and make it fun, it would be Ali.
I agree.
I think that she has the skill, the humor, and the potential to really deliver on a scene like that.
I agree.
Someone send this episode to Ali. I have requests.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we will be discussing Feybound by Sarah El Arifi.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. If you would like to submit your take on any of these books we plan to discuss later this summer, please be sure to follow us on Instagram, where we ask for listener submissions.
If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle BookTalkForBookTalk.
Bye.
Bye. I wasn't even looking at you.
I wasn't either. I just felt like we would know it. Okay.
On my end, it was in sync.
Oh, really? On my end, it wasn't, but I'm excited if it is.